In 2019, Japan hosted around 39 million foreign guests. In those days, getting into Japan was easier than opening up a 7-Eleven onigiri. But with the emergence of the world's most popular chest bug, the doors to Japan have slammed shut, much like they did during the Edo period. However, this time, there's no Commodore Matthew Perry to open up Japan, and the actor Matthew Perry is just completely useless. But the doors are beginning to open a crack, just a crack, and I was lucky enough to fit through one of those cracks. So here's a step-by-step of what I did. Maybe you'll find this information helpful, maybe you won't. Anyway, I'll just go through all the steps. Now, this does apply to me, an Australian citizen going to Japan. If you're unsure, make sure to check MOFA. That's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Japan. Not BOFA, that's something completely different. Tourist visas and the tourist visa waiver scheme is basically unavailable at the moment. So only people on business visas and humanitarian visas can get in, or people on like spouse visas. That's how I got in. My spouse is Japanese, so it was easy enough for me to get a visa. For everyone who's not Japanese or related to a Japanese person, it's probably pretty hard to get in, but things might change in the future. And I assume a lot of these further steps will still be in place for some time. But anyway, getting a visa was a pretty tedious task. I had to go to the consulate twice, and I needed to bring all of this stuff. You can pause it because I can't be bothered going through it. Now, the visa was free, luckily, and it did provide a pretty wide space of time for me to enter Japan. I think I had 3 months to go, and it was just a one-time use thing. So it was pretty tedious, but that's just what you have to do. Japan still has passenger caps. That means there aren't actually that many flights to Japan. I don't know what the deal is in your country, but in Australia, I think it's only Sydney that has direct flights to Japan. I'm from Brisbane, so I had to go to Sydney first to get a flight to Japan. So if you don't live in Sydney, that's a bit of a hassle, but on the bright side, it does mean you don't live in Sydney. Japan has only recently lifted requirements for quarantine for every foreign arrival. Thankfully, things have changed, but basically, if you are triple vaccinated, you're not from a country of concern, and you test negative on a PCR test before entering, then you can enter in Japan fairly easy without doing a quarantine at least. As is the case with a lot of places these days, you do need to pass a PCR test before entering. Now, this was actually the most stressful part of coming to Japan. I had to get a negative PCR test 72 hours prior to going into Japan. So I spent the 2 weeks prior to leaving Japan, or rather the 2 weeks prior to the test, just completely paranoid about getting coronavirus. I'm not that worried about getting it in general, but it would mean, having to reorganize the trip. So I spent 2 weeks just completely paranoid, trying not to get it. Cases were rising at that time as well, so it was actually pretty stressful. Thankfully, we passed the test. It was all good. We're good to go. Of course, Japan being Japan, you did need to fill out a special Japanese form for the PCR test, but the company did it all correct. It was good. It was great. It did cost $120 per person, which is quite annoying. But anyway, that's what we did. It all went according to plan. Great. We can catch the plane to Japan. Upon arriving to Japan, we needed to present the PCR results, our certificate of vaccination, and we had to sign a pledge promising that we would respect all medical laws and stuff. And if we broke that pledge, our name could be published in the newspaper. So for the old people that read the newspaper, that would have, brought a lot of shame to us. And then we also needed to do a saliva test. I don't know if it's a PCR test or not, but anyway, we needed to produce enough saliva to fill this small vial and then hand that to people. Now, it was actually a fair bit of saliva we needed to produce, but to help us, they did have photos of lemons around. And they said, please look at these photos of lemons to help stimulate saliva.
All this talk has made me hungry.
So, 3 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that staring at a picture of a lemon to stimulate saliva would have been part of the entry procedure to Japan, but that is the world we're living in now. So anyway, that entire process from landing on the tarmac to getting our test results That was 2.5 hours. So immigration does now take an extra 2.5 hours. I have heard of people taking 4 hours for that. You've got to remember that there were a few flights landing at that same time. So we were doing it with a few hundred other people. Everyone was pretty helpful, like all the staff at the airport to help us, but yeah, it was fairly arduous and pretty annoying after a 9-hour flight. But again, what can we do? Not much. Lastly, we're through to immigration, and that was a breeze. That took about 10 seconds. The most challenging part of that was answering whether or not we had any crossbows. Apparently, Japan is cracking down on crossbows at the moment, so don't bring any crossbows to Japan. So to summarize, you need to get your visa sorted. That probably, to be honest, eliminates most people, I'm afraid. It probably will take you longer travel time to get to Japan. If you want to do things quicker, you need to be triple vaccinated, and you need to put up with quite a few procedures at the airport. So whether or not you come to Japan, that's up to you, of course, obviously. But if you do make it, I will be here for the next 4 weeks, so I might catch you there. Anyway, thank you for watching. This is very different to my normal videos, but people were wondering what the procedure was coming to Japan and how I actually managed to get to Japan. So that's my story. I hope you enjoy. If you enjoy food reviews, that's what I normally do. Make sure to subscribe, and please like, and please comment, and please share this video with a friend, because that's the best way for new viewers to come on board. Cheers.